Let me ask you something that will hit you harder than you expect. Why are you the one who always calls, always texts, always initiates, while she never does? Why are you carrying the weight of a relationship that should be balanced? You think she doesn't notice. You think she doesn't know. Of course she does. She knows exactly what she's doing, and every time you pick up the phone first, every time you send another message into the silence, you're teaching her that your time, your energy, your love are worth less than hers. And here's the truth, no one wants to tell you her silence is not confusion, it's not business, it's not forgetfulness. Her silence is her answer, but I want you to hold on right now, because the answer doesn't stop with her. The real answer is what you do next. Will you keep chasing, hoping she suddenly becomes someone she's not? Or will you finally see the truth and respond in a way that flips everything? Because I'm about to show you why her silence is actually your greatest opportunity, not to win her back, but to win yourself back. Stay with me until the end, because if you leave now, you'll keep repeating the same cycle of begging for love that isn't freely given. But if you stay, you'll understand a truth that most men never wake up to. The moment you stop running after her is the moment she starts running after you. And that shift, that reversal of power will change not just your relationship, but your entire life. So don't move. What you're about to hear will rewrite the way you see women, love, and most importantly, your own worth. If she never calls or texts you first, I need you to strip away every excuse you've been giving yourself. Because the mind is clever, it plays tricks. It whispers stories that keep you stuck. Maybe she's shy. Maybe she's busy. Maybe she doesn't like to text. No, stop. Those are the lies you tell yourself to avoid facing the truth you already know. Effort is the clearest language of love, and absence of effort is the loudest rejection. If you mattered to her in the way you imagine, she would not be able to stay away. A woman who values you, who respects you, who desires you will not go silent. She will not let hours turn into days, days into weeks without reaching out. Why? Because human beings do not neglect what matters most to them. When you are important to someone, they will always make space for you. Think about yourself for a moment. Think about the things and people that matter to you. Do you forget them? Do you put them off indefinitely? No. You carve out time, even when you're tired, even when you're overwhelmed. You make the call. You send the message. Because connection is not something you gamble with when it's real. So when she never initiates contact, what you are witnessing is not a mystery, not a puzzle to decode, but the purest form of truth. Her silence is her answer. Here's the danger: instead of seeing that silence as a statement, you reinterpret it as a challenge. You chase harder. You convince yourself that if you can just prove your worth, if you can just stay consistent, if you can just show her you care, eventually she will see. But let me tell you, all she sees is desperation. All she sees is a man who does not recognize his own value. And here's the cruel paradox: the more you run after her, the more she runs from you. Because people don't cherish what they don't earn. They don't honor what is freely handed to them without condition. Psychologically, what's happening here is simple. Human beings are drawn to what they fear losing. Attention, time, effort, they are currencies. And if you give them endlessly to someone who invests nothing in return, you've destroyed their value. Think about money. A currency printed without limit becomes worthless. The same happens with your energy. If you spend it on someone who does not reciprocate, it becomes invisible, meaningless, taken for granted. That's why her silence is the clearest mirror you'll ever look into. It's not about what she says, it's about what she does not do. And in that silence, she has already told you where you stand. But instead of taking that truth as an insult, take it as liberation. Because the moment you stop begging for clarity from someone who refuses to give it, you begin to reclaim yourself. You stop being a man who waits around for crumbs of attention and start being a man who demands reciprocity. And this isn't about arrogance. It isn't about punishing her. It's about aligning yourself with reality. If she doesn't call, it means you are not her priority. And if you are not her priority, why on earth would you make her yours? It's time you saw silence not as confusion, but as closure. She doesn't need to reject you outright. She already has by doing nothing. She doesn't need to block you. Her indifference is already the block. She doesn't need to confess she doesn't feel the same. Her inaction has already confessed it for her. When someone doesn't call, doesn't text, doesn't initiate, you must take it as the truth it is. Not an insult, not a mystery, a truth. And the sooner you accept that truth, the sooner you stop wasting your life on someone who has already given you their answer. And here's the reflection I want to leave you with. Every time you ignore her silence, every time you pretend it means less than it does, you betray yourself. You become the one who rejects you first. But when you finally decide to see silence for what it is, a statement, you regain your dignity. You stop waiting, you stop chasing, you stop begging. And you start living as a man who understands this simple law: love never hides. Love never stays silent. Love never leaves you guessing. If she never calls or texts you first, the message is already loud enough. Believe it. When you finally accept her silence for what it is, the next step becomes clear. You withdraw. You stop pouring energy into a void that gives nothing back. And let me tell you why this is not just a strategy, not just a game, but a deep act of self-respect. Human beings are wired to respond to loss. We ignore abundance, but we fear absence. We take what is constant for granted, but the moment it's gone, we feel its weight. Right now, she doesn't feel your value because you've made yourself endlessly available. Your presence has become background noise, always there, always predictable. The only way she will ever feel it is if you take it away. Withdrawal doesn't mean cruelty. It doesn't mean punishing her or making her chase you out of revenge. It means you've stopped investing where there is no return. Think of it like a leaking bucket. If you keep pouring water into it, no matter how much you give, it will never fill. The wise thing to do is not to exhaust yourself trying harder. It is to pick up the bucket and walk away. In relationships, your energy, your time, your attention, these are your water. And a woman who never initiates, never reaches out, never invests, is a bucket with holes. You can spend years pouring into her and still be left empty. But the moment you stop, the moment you withdraw, the leaking becomes obvious. Not to you, but to her. Here's the psychology behind it. People are conditioned to respond to scarcity. When something is abundant, when it requires no effort, it loses value. But the moment it disappears, the mind panics. Suddenly, what was once taken for granted becomes the very thing we crave. That is why your withdrawal is powerful. When you stop texting, stop calling, stop showing up, you create space for her to feel your absence. And absence is louder than presence. It speaks directly to the human fear of loss. Most men get this wrong because they think more effort equals more results. They believe that if they just prove themselves enough, eventually she'll reciprocate. But relationships don't work like equations. They work like mirrors. You show up, she shows up. You give, she gives. If she doesn't, and you keep pouring in anyway, the balance collapses. It's no longer a relationship. It's a performance, with you as the actor and her as the audience. Withdrawal restores balance because it stops the performance. You step off the stage, and suddenly she's left staring at an empty space where you used to be. And yes, there will be a test here. When you withdraw, she might not chase you immediately. She might not even notice right away. But over time, the silence you once felt from her will now echo inside her. She will remember the man who used to call, used to check in, used to carry the weight of connection. And then, in that stillness, she will face the truth. Either she cares enough to reach out, or she doesn't. Either way, you win. If she reaches out, It means she has finally felt the value of your presence. If she doesn't, it means she never valued it in the first place, and you have saved yourself from a lifetime of emptiness. Withdrawal is not weakness. It is strength. It is the act of saying, my attention is sacred, my energy is not infinite. If you cannot honor it, you cannot have it. Do you realize how powerful that makes you? Because most men are trapped in the cycle of giving without boundaries. They hand out their attention like it costs nothing, and in doing so, they teach women to treat it as nothing. But the man who withdraws teaches a different lesson. He teaches that his presence is rare, his attention is precious, and his energy is earned. I want you to remember this when you withdraw. You are not closing a door out of bitterness. You are simply allowing reality to reveal itself. If she values you, she will show it. If she doesn't, she won't. Either way, you have reclaimed control. You no longer wait for scraps. You no longer beg for effort. You no longer sit in silence, hoping for a miracle. You choose yourself. So here is your reflection. The silence you give her today is not about her at all. It is about you. It is about the man you decide to be. A man who withdraws is not a man who lost. He is a man who understood that love without effort is not love at all. Walk away from what does not water you, and you will finally grow. When you've understood her silence and had the strength to withdraw, the final step is the one that transforms everything. Remaining silent yourself. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not defeat. Silence is power, because when you stop begging for attention, when you stop trying to force her to see you, you reclaim the most valuable thing you possess: yourself, respect. Respect is not something you demand with words, it is something you command with presence, or in this case, with absence. A man who values himself does not need to announce it. He doesn't chase after someone who has shown him indifference. He doesn't try to prove his worth to a person who cannot see it. He embodies his worth through his restraint. And restraint is rare in a world of desperation. Most men talk too much, chase too much, give too much, hoping that their excess will be enough to make up for her lack. But a man who chooses silence communicates something far stronger. He communicates that he knows his energy is precious and that he will not waste it where it is not reciprocated. Psychologically, silence unsettles people more than words ever could. When you withdraw and remain quiet, you force her to sit with her own conscience. She begins to wonder, why isn't he calling? Why isn't he checking in like before? Did he lose interest? Did he finally realize he deserves better? And that question alone shifts the power dynamic. Because before, you were the one waiting for her to notice you. Now, she is the one left to wrestle with the uncertainty of losing you. Silence places the responsibility back where it belongs, on her. But more importantly, silence is not about her at all. It is about you. It is about mastering the ability to walk away without looking back. It is about detaching your value from someone else's recognition. This is where most men fall apart. They think their worth depends on whether she reaches out, whether she misses them, whether she finally decides to make the effort. But true strength comes from understanding that your worth is not defined by her actions. Your worth is constant, and your silence is proof that you know it. Think about it this way: every time you break your silence to chase her, you hand over your power. You teach her that you will always return, no matter how little she gives. You reinforce her indifference. But when you remain silent, you break the pattern. You no longer reward her lack of effort with more of your energy. You stand firm in your value, and in doing so, you not only command her respect, you reclaim your own. This is why silence is terrifying, because it does not argue, it does not explain, it does not beg, it simply is. And in that stillness, she has no defense. Words she can ignore, efforts she can dismiss, but silence echoes. It forces her to notice what she lost without you ever needing to remind her. That is why silence, when chosen from a place of strength, is the loudest statement you can ever make. But I want you to understand something deeper. This is not about playing games or trying to manipulate her. This is not about staying silent just so she will come running back. This is about principle. It is about the kind of man you decide to be. Do you want to be the man who exhausts himself begging for love? Or the man who is so rooted in his value that he does not need to prove it to anyone? Your silence answers that question for you. So let this sink in. Silence is not empty. It is full of answers. It reveals who truly values you and who doesn't. It shows you who is willing to step forward when you step back. And it teaches you the greatest lesson of all, that love without respect is worthless, and respect begins with you. Here's the final thought I want to leave you with. When she doesn't call or text first, her silence is the answer. When you withdraw, your absence is the mirror, and when you remain silent, your dignity is the declaration. You don't need to chase, you don't need to beg, you don't need to prove. The man who understands the weight of his silence is the man no one can ignore.